Your water heater runs every day of the year, every day. Whether you use it or not, it maintains a tank of water at 120 degrees around the clock, burning gas or electricity continuously to replace the heat that slowly bleeds out through the tank walls into the surrounding air. This is called standby loss, and it accounts for approximately 18 to 20% of your water heating cost. You are paying to heat water you are not using. The average American household spends between $400 and $600 per year on water heating. For households with multiple people, teenagers, or high hot water usage, the number is higher. For a family of 4 in a cold climate, $800 per year is not unusual. In September, I drove to a farmhouse in Berks County, Pennsylvania, that has not had a water heating bill of any kind since 1962. Not gas, not electric, not propane. A family of 7. Hot water every day, winter included. The system that provides it was built in 1962 by the current owner's grandfather for $31 in materials. It has been repaired twice in 62 years. The total repair cost across both incidents was $44. I was skeptical. I want you to know that. I have been skeptical of every story I tell on this channel until I see it with my own eyes. I saw this one. I ran the hot water tap in that farmhouse kitchen for 3 minutes on a 40-degree November morning, and the water came out hot. The system is called a thermosiphon solar water heater. It is not new technology. The first commercial version was patented in the United States in 1891 by a Baltimore inventor named Clarence Kemp. His patent number was 451,384. It was called the Climax Solar Water Heater. And within a decade of its introduction, 30,000 units had been sold in the United States, and it had been adopted widely in Florida, California, and the Southwest. By 1940, approximately 4 million homes in California alone were using solar water heating systems. The technology worked. It required no electricity, no pump, no moving parts. It was cheaper than any alternative available at the time. Between 1950 and 1960, natural gas became widely available and cheap in most of the country, and the gas utility companies that had been building infrastructure for 30 years needed customers to justify that infrastructure. They ran aggressive marketing campaigns positioning gas water heaters as modern, efficient, and superior to solar. They were not superior in energy cost or longevity. They were inferior on both measures. They were superior in one respect only. They required monthly payments to a gas utility. The solar water heater required no monthly payments to anyone after the initial installation cost. This made it economically inconvenient for the energy infrastructure that had been built to supply it. So the industry that had been built around it quietly collapsed under the marketing pressure of an industry that needed you to have a gas bill. The Amish in Pennsylvania, who were not the target audience for gas utility marketing campaigns, and who had no grid connection to use an electric water heater anyway, looked at the choice differently. They had been using solar water heating since the early 20th century. It worked. It had always worked. They kept doing it. The man whose farmhouse I visited is named Levi Hoover. He is 64 years old. His grandfather built the original system in 1962. His father made minor modifications in 1979. Levi repaired a cracked collector panel in 2008 and replaced a storage tank fitting in 2019. Those are the 2 repair incidents. He showed me the original handwritten notes his grandfather made when he built the system. Materials list, dimensions, the tilt angle calculation for their latitude, a note about which direction the collector should face. 5 pages of penciled notes in a journal that also contains planting records and weather observations from the same year. His grandfather did not have a solar engineering degree. He had a 1958 issue of Popular Mechanics that included a construction article on thermosiphon solar collectors. The knowledge that hot water rises and cold water falls, and the patience to build something correctly the first time. Here is how the system works. The physics requires no moving parts and no electricity. A flat panel collector is mounted on a roof or south-facing wall. The collector consists of a dark-colored absorber plate, usually painted black or made of black-coated copper or aluminum. Inside an insulated box with a glass or transparent polycarbonate cover, sunlight passes through the cover and strikes the absorber plate. The plate heats up. Water circulating through tubes attached to the absorber plate absorbs that heat. The heated water rises. This is basic physics. Warm water is less dense than cold water and floats upward. As the heated water rises out of the collector, cold water from the bottom of the storage tank flows down to replace it. This circulation continues as long as the sun is heating the collector. No pump, no electricity, no moving parts. Just the difference in density between hot and cold water driving a continuous circulation loop. The storage tank is mounted above the collector, usually in the attic or on a platform above the roofline. The height difference is what allows the thermosiphon to function. Hot water rises from the collector into the bottom of the storage tank. Cold water from the top of the tank falls back down to the collector inlet. The loop runs continuously during daylight hours. Levi's system stores 200 gallons. On a clear day in June, the system brings that water from 50 degrees to 140 degrees by early afternoon. On a clear day in November, it reaches 110 degrees by midday. On overcast days, it reaches 70 to 80 degrees, which is not hot enough for comfortable showering but is warm enough that the backup system, a small wood-fired coil in the kitchen stove, needs only minutes of burning to bring it to temperature rather than hours. The backup system costs nothing to operate because the family burns wood for cooking and heating anyway. The stove is running. The coil sits in the firebox. The water passing through the coil picks up heat that was going to be produced regardless. In 62 years, the system has never failed to provide hot water on the same day it was needed. Not once. Now let me tell you what this costs to build and where the materials come from. Levi's grandfather's $31 1962 cost translates to approximately $300 in today's materials if you purchase everything new. A more typical figure for a well-sourced build using salvaged or discount materials is between $150 and $250. The collector frame is built from 2x6 lumber, standard construction lumber, available anywhere. The absorber plate is a sheet of copper or aluminum painted with flat black heat-resistant spray paint. The kind sold for barbecue grills, available at any hardware store for $6 a can. The glazing is twin-wall polycarbonate sheet, the same material used for greenhouse construction, available at home improvement stores for approximately $1 per square foot. The storage tank for a family-sized system is a standard 50 to 80 gallon water heater tank, purchased new for $200 to $300 or salvaged from a house renovation for free. The tank is insulated with fiberglass bats and enclosed in a plywood box. The plumbing connections are standard copper fittings available at any hardware store. The total materials for a system that provides a family of 4 with hot water for the next 40 years cost less than 1 year of their current water heating bill. I want to address the objection that always comes up when this is discussed. What about winter? What about overcast days? What about northern climates? Levi's farmhouse is in Berks County, Pennsylvania. The latitude is approximately 40.2 degrees north. Winter temperatures regularly drop below 20 degrees Fahrenheit. December and January bring frequent overcast periods. His system provides full hot water temperature in approximately 250 days per year and partial heating on most of the remaining days. The wood stove backup covers the difference. For a household without a wood stove, the backup is a standard electric element installed in the storage tank, wired to a timer that activates only when the tank temperature drops below a set point. In a well-designed system in a mid-Atlantic or southern climate, the electric backup activates on average fewer than 60 days per year. The annual electric cost for that backup is approximately $30 to $50. The water heating bill drops from $600 per year to $50 per year. In a southern climate, the backup rarely activates at all. I found Kemp's original 1891 patent in the U.S. Patent Office database, patent number 450384. The design he filed for is functionally identical to what Levi Hoover's grandfather built in 1962, and what sits on the roof of that farmhouse today. The physics has not changed in 133 years because it does not need to change. Hot water rises, cold water falls. The sun heats the collector, the circulation runs. I also found a report commissioned by the Florida Solar Energy Center in 1977. At the height of the oil crisis, that surveyed thermosiphon solar water heating systems installed in Florida homes between 1935 and 1955. The systems that were still operational at the time of the survey had been running for between 22 and 42 years with minimal maintenance. The report's conclusion was that properly constructed thermosiphon systems had demonstrated service lives exceeding 40 years and operating costs approaching zero after installation. That report was published. It circulated among solar energy researchers in the late 1970s. When natural gas prices dropped again in the early 1980s, interest in solar water heating declined, and the report was filed without follow-up. The gas utility industry spent approximately $200 million on residential marketing in 1983, the year natural gas became cheap enough to undercut solar water heating again on initial installation cost. $200 million to tell you that paying a monthly gas bill was more convenient than not paying one. They were right that it was more convenient for them. Levi Hoover has not paid a water heating bill since before he was born. His grandfather's $31 investment has returned approximately $36,000 in avoided utility costs over 62 years at current average rates, conservatively estimated. That calculation does not account for the compounding effect of rate increases over that period. Accounting for rate increases, the real return is closer to $60,000. $31. $60,000 returned over 62 years on a farmhouse in Pennsylvania. Here is what you need to build a basic thermosiphon system for a family of 4. All materials are available at hardware stores, home improvement stores, or online. 1 sheet of 1/2-inch exterior plywood for the collector box frame, approximately $40. 4 2x6 boards, 8 feet long, for the frame structure, approximately $30. 1 4x8 sheet of copper flashing or aluminum sheet metal, 24 gauge, for the absorber plate, approximately $60 at a metal supply house or roofing supplier. 1 can of flat black high-temperature spray paint rated for grill use, $6. 1 sheet of 4x8 twin-wall polycarbonate glazing, approximately $35. 40 feet of 1/2-inch copper tubing for the absorber tube array, approximately $80 at current copper prices. Standard copper sweat fittings for the connections, approximately $25. 1 50-gallon electric water heater tank, new, approximately $250, or salvaged for free if you source one from a renovation project. Foam pipe insulation and fiberglass bats for the tank enclosure, approximately $30. Total for new materials, approximately $550 to $600. For a family currently paying $600 per year on water heating, the system pays for itself in the first year and provides hot water at no operating cost for the next 30 to 40 years. The installation requires a weekend and basic carpentry and plumbing skills. If you can build a bookshelf and sweat a copper fitting, you can build this system. There is no permit required in most jurisdictions for a thermosiphon system that uses a standard water heater tank, because it is classified as a passive solar installation connected to an existing water supply, not as a new water system. Before you start, check your local building codes. In most states, passive solar water heating installations on existing residences do not require permits. In some jurisdictions, a permit is required if the system connects to the household plumbing. The permit, where required, is straightforward and the process is faster than most people expect. The tilt angle for the collector should equal your latitude plus 10 to 15 degrees for winter optimization. For a home at 40 degrees north latitude, the collector should be tilted at 50 to 55 degrees from horizontal. This angle maximizes solar collection in the winter months when the sun is lower in the sky and hot water demand is highest. The collector should face true south, not magnetic south. In most of the continental United States, there is a difference of between 5 and 20 degrees between true south and magnetic south. A simple online search for your location will give you the magnetic declination correction. Levi's grandfather's 5 pages of penciled notes from 1962 covered all of this. He calculated his latitude from a county map. He calculated the magnetic declination from a compass and a noon shadow. He built a system that has been running for 62 years. I want to go deeper on the construction details, because the difference between a system that works for 60 years and one that fails in 5 is in specific decisions made during the build, and those decisions are not in any commercial solar installation guide, because commercial installers have no financial interest in a system you build yourself and never need to service. The absorber plate is the most critical component. The absorber needs to transfer heat efficiently from the plate surface to the water flowing through the tubes. The standard commercial method is to solder copper tubes directly to a copper sheet. This creates excellent thermal contact. The method Levi's grandfather used is simpler and nearly as effective. He formed the copper tubing into a serpentine pattern and attached it to the absorber plate using aluminum clips pressed over the tube at 6-inch intervals. The clips hold the tube in firm contact with the plate. At operating temperatures, the thermal contact is sufficient to transfer 90 to 95% of the heat that direct soldering would transfer, at a fraction of the skill requirement. The flat black paint on the absorber plate is not optional. It is not aesthetic. Black paint absorbs approximately 98% of incident solar radiation. Bare copper reflects approximately 30%. The difference in system performance between a painted and unpainted absorber is significant enough that a correctly painted aluminum absorber plate outperforms an unpainted copper one. The glazing creates the greenhouse effect that concentrates heat in the collector box. The glazing must be transparent to shortwave solar radiation and opaque to long-wave infrared radiation. Glass does this perfectly. Twin-wall polycarbonate does it nearly as well at half the weight and a fraction of the breakage risk. Single-wall polycarbonate is not adequate because it does not have sufficient insulating value to prevent overnight heat loss from the collector. The collector box must be insulated on the back and sides. Fiberglass bats in the cavity between the absorber plate and the back of the box reduce heat loss to the structure the collector is mounted on. Without this insulation, a significant fraction of the heat collected during the day bleeds out through the box back at night. The single most common failure point in systems that do not last is the storage tank connection. If the tank is not mounted high enough above the collector, the thermosiphon circulation is weak. The rule Levi's grandfather wrote in his notes is that the bottom of the storage tank must be at least 12 inches above the top of the collector. 18 inches is better. This height difference is what drives the circulation pressure. Below 12 inches, the system still works but circulates slowly and heats less efficiently. The second most common failure point is pipe insulation on the connection between the collector and the tank. If those pipes are uninsulated, they lose heat to the surrounding air on cold nights, and the water in the collector can freeze in climates that experience below freezing temperatures. Levi's grandfather wrapped those pipes in several layers of burlap stuffed with dried leaves in 1962. Which is not the most durable solution but lasted until Levi replaced it with foam pipe insulation in 1989. In a climate where nighttime temperatures regularly drop below 25 degrees Fahrenheit, a drainback feature is worth adding. This is a small reservoir at the collector outlet that allows the water in the collector to drain back into the tank when the pump, in this case the thermosiphon effect, stops at night. With no water in the collector, there is nothing to freeze. This is a simple plumbing addition that adds approximately $30 in materials and eliminates any freeze risk. Levi's grandfather's system does not have a drainback feature. He solved the freeze problem differently. The collector pipes are sloped so that any water in them drains back into the storage tank by gravity when the system is not circulating. This requires careful planning of the pipe routing during installation, but it is completely passive and has worked without failure for 62 years. I want to tell you about one more person before the practical summary. A woman named Rachel Byler in Lancaster County, who has a system her husband built in 1988 for $212 in materials at the time. She told me the total repair cost in 36 years is $38 for a replacement fitting and a tube of silicone sealant. She said she has never thought much about hot water. It is just there, every day, the same way water comes out of the tap without her thinking about the plumbing. That is the goal. A system so reliable that it stops being a system and starts being an infrastructure assumption. The Amish build that way. They build for the next generation, not for the next service contract. Her husband is gone now. She maintains the system herself. She told me his instructions are written on a card tucked behind the storage tank. They are 2 sentences long. There is one more element of this system that I want to document, because it represents the kind of practical long-term thinking that does not appear in any commercial installation guide. Levi's grandfather built the system in 1962 with the expectation that his grandchildren would still be using it. He overspecified every component. The copper tubes are heavier gauge than necessary for the operating pressure. The collector box frame is built from full-dimension 2x6 lumber rather than the nominal dimension that modern construction uses. The storage tank is insulated to a standard significantly above what was required to prevent heat loss. He used more solder on every fitting than the minimum required for a watertight seal. This overspecification is the reason the system is still running after 62 years with 2 minor repairs. He was not trying to build the cheapest system that would work. He was trying to build the most durable system he could afford. The difference in material costs between the minimum adequate specification and the overspecified version he chose was approximately $12 in 1962 terms. That $12 of additional investment has meant that his grandchildren have never needed to replace the system. The present cost of replacing the system with a modern solar water heating installation is approximately $4,000 to $6,000 installed. He avoided that cost by spending $12 additional in 1962. The Amish phrase for this approach, which Levi used when I asked him how his grandfather made construction decisions, translates roughly as building for the one who comes after. Not for yourself, for the person who will inherit the structure when you are gone. That consideration changes every decision in the build process. It changes what materials you choose. It changes how careful you are at each step. It changes what you are willing to spend at the beginning to avoid burdening the next generation. American construction culture optimizes for the lowest initial cost that meets the minimum standard. The Amish optimize for the lowest total cost across the expected life of the structure. Over 60 years, those 2 optimization strategies produce results that are approximately $60,000 apart on a single water heating system. The decision was made in 1962. The outcome accumulated slowly, year by year, in utility bills that were never sent. I want to address one more objection that comes up consistently when this subject is raised online. People say that modern building codes, homeowner association rules, and roof load requirements make this impractical for most American homes. I looked into each of these claims carefully. On building codes, as I mentioned, passive solar water heating systems that use a standard water heater tank are classified in most jurisdictions as a plumbing modification, not a structural modification. They require a plumbing permit in some states and no permit at all in others. The process is straightforward where it is required. No jurisdiction in the United States prohibits thermosiphon solar water heating on residential property. On homeowner associations, HOA rules that restrict solar energy systems are increasingly preempted by state law. As of 2023, over 40 states have enacted solar access laws that restrict or prohibit HOA rules preventing solar energy installations. A thermosiphon water heater is a solar energy system. In most states, your HOA cannot legally prohibit it regardless of what their rules say. On roof load, a standard thermosiphon collector panel covering approximately 32 square feet weighs approximately 40 pounds dry and approximately 200 pounds filled with water. This is within the standard dead load capacity of any roof built to code in the United States. The storage tank is not mounted on the roof. It is mounted in the attic or on a platform adjacent to the roofline. The attic floor load capacity is typically far higher than the tank weight. These objections, in most cases, dissolve under examination. They are the same kind of discouragement that has kept this technology on the margins of American residential construction for 40 years. Not because the technology cannot be implemented, but because the barriers appear larger than they are before you look at them directly. Levi's grandfather looked at them directly in 1962 and concluded they were not barriers. He was right. His family has been warm and clean and free of water heating costs ever since. Tell me in the comments what your current annual water heating cost is and what state you live in. I am tracking how much money this information saves this audience collectively, and I want your number in the total. Subscribe and hit the bell. Next week, I am going to show you the Amish seed saving method that produced the same tomato variety on the same farm in Chester County for over 100 years without genetic drift, without purchasing new seed, and without any of the techniques that modern seed companies insist are necessary to maintain variety stability. The seed company that controls the most popular commercial tomato varieties needs you to buy new seed every spring. The Amish have been not buying it since before the company existed. Stay with me, there is more.